All right, so we're gonna be going over how to remove friction in your fat loss journey. So this is really mainly directed to people who are looking to shred fat and just want to have it more sustainable. All right, so number one is trying to be perfect, right? Like ideally, you're never gonna see a direct straight line going right down, like saying like consistently across the board. Some people fluctuate in, like 1 to 2 pounds. I personally fluctuate like 5 pounds in water weight. It just depends on a few different factors, right? Everyone's a little bit different. Also, depending on your diet, how many carbs you have, the salt, sodium intake, if you sweat a lot, if you work out a lot versus if you don't work out as much. But these are like the number one things that people like ask me. It's like, well, how to like shred fat? You guys have by now already realized it comes down to one thing, which is a calorie deficit. It's not about cutting carbs and it's not about eliminating junk food or eating only healthy food, right? Because there's still, if that was the case, then why are the people who are still having salads with, every day still overweight? So the good news is that you don't have to have salads every day to shred fat. In fact, there's studies that show that, the person who had like it was like ice cream every single day for a whole like 30 days, still lost the same amount of fat as a person who was put onto a nutrient dense meal plan. The only difference was the person who had more nutrient dense material also was able to hold on to more muscle, right? So when it comes to fat loss or weight loss in general, you have to ask yourself, like, do you just want to lose fat or do you actually want to lose, do you want to just lose weight or are you just trying to lose fat? So that being said, your muscle, they needs carbs anyways. Let's just get that straight. And then you don't need to do a lot of cardio, especially anything above zone three. Zone three is like jogging and running and sprinting, that kind of intensity. Ironically, while walking at an incline, at a 12 incline with a 3 miles per hour, it burns 70% more body fat than running or sprinting or any other like hit style cardio. So just stick it to like zone two. Zone two is perfect. You don't need to do any fasting. Fasting, all it does is it starves the glycogen stores from your muscle, and then you increase the risk of muscle loss. And the more muscle you lose, the slower your metabolism becomes. And then eventually, to be in this calorie deficit, you're gonna have to be eating like 1,000 calories a day, and that's what happens to a lot of people is that their baseline just becomes very little, where there's not much room for to cut, right? Ideally, you should not be in a deficit for longer than like the longest deficit you should be in is 24 weeks. After that, ideally your testosterone is going to get lower and your T3 is going to get lower, which is why we're going to cover exactly, what a proper fat loss or cut looks like. All right, so let's start. So first things we want to do is upgrade the snacks, right? So personally, if you're someone who depends on your lifestyle, like if you're someone who doesn't have time to eat like full-on meals, I like eating meals that like I'd much rather have like three heavier meals just because I work from home and it's just a lot easier to track. I'm not really a big snack person, but if you are a snack person, okay, we have a few different, let's go over chips, right? Chips, instead of getting chips, you can get some, like protein bars or protein chips. There's those that are available. Like Quest has some candy, right? There's fruits, and then for instead of trail mix, you can have like Greek yogurt, sugary drinks, like, of course, there's Diet Coke and Sprite Zero, things of that nature that would just replace it. These are just simple little immediate swaps you can do today that's going to get you fast, that's going to help you eliminate any excess calories, which is going to push you into calorie deficit. Now, calorie deficits matter because that's the only thing that's going to actually shred fat off your body and consistently. Okay, this is given that you have a strong metabolism, that your T3 is optimized, which if you came to the last meeting, we basically just the T3 in your blood work is your metabolic function. If your metabolic function is optimized, then a calorie deficit will work for you.
How
Now,
do you optimize the T3?
T3 is your thyroid. That's your metabolic function.
Yeah, how do you optimize that?
Sorry, what was that?
How do you optimize it?
So a few ways, right? Number one is with steadily, we'll get to that towards the end of the training, but we're basically like it's called metabolic priming. I'll get to that at the very end of this training.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Any other questions? Just make sure you reserve them to the very end. We're getting to the fun part. Any caffeine. So caffeine is it naturally, it's yes, it does spike up your CNS and it does help control appetites and it also does technically help you burn more calories. Now, because your CNS is more active, it's your central nervous system. So you can use caffeine strategically. Ironically, you should because a lot of guys like you use it in the morning. You actually shouldn't use it in the morning because of the crashes that happen afterwards, and it's also because in the morning your body secretes cortisol, which is a natural stimulant for your body to wake up. Same thing with GABA, norepinephrine. And if you work out in the morning, you already have energy coming from that. If you're going to use caffeine, use it in the afternoon around like 12 p.m., 1 p.m. It's going to give you enough time for it to get out of your system by the evening. And it just keeps your energy up higher, your CNS higher to help control your appetites. The only thing I will say is make sure that you do still hit your water goal, more importantly, because what tends to happen with caffeine is that you also get dehydrated a lot quicker because you're not thirsty. That being said, you want to use it strategically. Like 12 to 2 p.m. is usually good. All right. And fast foods. So these are mainly for people who are really busy. If you don't like meal prepping, again, I meal prepping, once you like learn the art of it, it should only take an hour for a whole week's worth of meal prep. If you do everything at the right time, right? If you put everything in the oven, put it on for like 35 to 40 minutes, maybe cook a few things in the meantime while you're waiting. It should only take an hour with all the cleanup. Now, ideally you should find like three default meals, maybe not five, but three default meals. Chipotle is a great one because they have like those are like good fast like Chipotle is a pretty reliable fast food. Maybe not like there are some things that you can have from these fast foods that would be better than not eating at all. So that's another thing too, guys. Like not eating at all actually does worse for your body than eating something. I think only a few guys have had issues with finding better swaps. But just like you should have already the top three. For me, it's Fresh Kitchen, which is similar to Chipotle. There's Chipotle, and then there's a Naked Farmer, which is a very similar concept as Chipotle. Like all of them are just foods that are made, they're whole foods, not processed. You can still technically be in a fat loss if you have some processed foods. Like if you went to Chick-fil-A and you had the grilled chicken and with the mac and cheese, that would be fine. You get some high protein from that. It's like, and then there's like there's certain things you can find. Like even Panda Express has some really high protein options. McDonald's started to have some high protein options as well. They do have like grilled chicken now. So depending on which location you guys go to, but all right. And then of course eating more protein because out of all the macronutrients, protein is the only macronutrient that it has the highest thermic effect. Meaning that it costs your body more calories to digest protein than any other macronutrient. So it's going to keep you fuller for longer, but it's also going to help you burn more calories and it preserves muscle tissue that you break down in the gym. So if you don't know how much primary protein you should be having, look at your body weight and start with that. Like that's your goal. So from this, if you weigh 200 pounds, 200 grams of protein is your goal. If you weigh 170, keep it very simple. Start with that as a baseline. Even Arnold, who's like a bodybuilder, he was 225 and he didn't have any more than his own body weight at 225. So just stick to you need protein, but don't obsess too much over it. Let's see, we have a question from David. David, what's your question?
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Felix, on that. So, like, you said, like, you should eat it, like, however much you weigh is how many grams of protein you should ideally try to have a day. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And
That's
like in terms of like what like really good protein like chicken, like what's I don't know if you're gonna go over this later or stuff, but like what would you say is like the best like food out
Eggs.
there? Eggs?
yeah, great question. The top my top three protein sources that I like, you have
Fish.
chicken, you have ground turkey, and you have ground beef. The reason why like those are the three simplest is because it's the those are my favorite because they're simple. You can easily cook them for long periods of time and not get tired of it. Occasionally it's good to have a little bit of steak here and there, to have a little bit of salmon, but in terms of consistency, what can you have on a consistent basis? That varies from person to person. If you wanted to like meal prep, chicken, you can put it all like just you have a whole tray of chicken and make some baked chicken in the oven. You can, put on about like 5 pounds of ground turkey and or into one skillet and 5 pounds of ground beef in another. And it's super, super lean and easy. You can just throw in a marinade like J. Hughes 0 calorie marinade. It makes it very easy to hit your protein goal because it shrinks up. So like 1 pound, like it'll shrink up into like you could eat a whole pound in about two sittings comfortably. And to put it this way, 1 pound of 93% lean ground turkey is about 125 grams of protein. So if you had that just by having 1 pound of it, one package, which is usually at your local supermarket, you'll have 125 grams of protein by having that entire package within the day. So
You said that's ground turkey?
ground turkey, yes.
Okay. So if
Yeah,
I go to like my supermarket, I you don't want like honey maple turkey, you want to say ground turkey. Like there's a difference between
correct.
like okay,
Yeah. And 93% like the leanest cut the leanest type that you can
the
get.
leanest. Okay.
Yeah, the leaner the better. It just makes it that way you don't eat a whole lot of food. So what we're trying to do is like front load all your protein. Because guess what? If you hit all your protein in, let's say by 12 p.m., all right, maybe you have like an early, like you wake up at 6 a.m., you have a breakfast, 60 grams of protein there. After the gym, you have another meal. It's like 10 a.m. And then you have one more meal at like 1 p.m. Now you hit your protein goal. Now the rest of your calories can be like let's say you have 500 calories, you could have a piece of cake, ice cream, whatever, because that's going to come from the excess calories that you have, which is carbs and fats. So if the faster you can knock out your protein, the faster you can backfill the rest of your calories with fun foods. So, if maybe you have a girlfriend and you want to go to the movies, you can get snacks guilt free. And yes, they're like you pick and choose your battles, which is actually what I'm going to be getting to as well, because we don't want to like if you value having like a lot of food, right? Then eventually you'd want to have more lower calorie options so that way that you don't have to be done with that let's say you had a 500 calorie allowance, you don't just exhaust that in one candy bar. It can be all spent in one candy bar very much or one crumble cookie. All right. That being said, any other questions before I move on? All right. That being said, so we also want to remove late night eating. The reason why is because it's going to disrupt your sleep. So when you go to sleep, your body should be at complete rest. But when your digestive system is awake, your nervous system is also awake, meaning you get poor quality sleep because while you're trying to sleep, even though the rest of your body is asleep, your nervous system has to be awake to keep the digestive system running overnight. And now you're burning you're getting less quality sleep, meaning that the thing about sleep is the less you get of it, the more fat your body holds and the less muscle your body can recover from the workouts. So ideally you should, and I know it says 2 hours before bed, but try to keep it to 3 hours before bed. So 3 hours before bed, you're not eating, and it gives your body enough time to digest the food. ideally 5 or 6 p.m. is a perfect time to have dinner because then no matter, you're not trying to, stay up, if you had dinner at 8 p.m., you're not trying to stay up an extra 3 hours just because you had dinner at 8. Just have it early, 5 or 6 p.m., latest 7 p.m., and you should be good by 10 or 11. All right. And then, of course, increasing your steps without working out. This is called NEAT calories. NEAT calories is called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This accounts for 30% of your total daily caloric expenditure. So this is like, like if you have if you walk around already a lot, amazing. You're probably hitting 10,000 steps. But if you work from a desk or work from an office, it really does help having a walking pad next to you. So that way, that whenever you have like meetings like this, you can also get your steps in, or you can go outside, take some calls. This is a really good opportunity for you to like you can even watch Netflix while you're on your walking pad, answer emails, get some work done. And this is one way that you can keep your metabolism awake for a longer period of time because when you sit down, half of your body is at rest and your heart rate drops as well. You also want to lift weights, right? What I mean by that is stick to strength training, not endurance training, and of course, hypertrophy training is okay, but strength training is ideal. What is the difference between all those three? So, endurance training is when you start to find yourself lifting weights within the rep ranges of 12, 15. Like at that point, right, it's really the last 2 to 3 reps that stimulate muscle growth. So the difference between the person who works out in the 6 rep range, 6 to 8 rep range, and the person who works out in the 12 to 15 rep range is that you remove the endurance component when you do the 6 to 8 rep range, meaning you can progress a lot faster, hit personal best quicker. You can see progress in the gym, and that's going to not only build more muscle as a result, but the more muscle you have, the better body composition, the faster metabolism is going to be, which is just going to be the engine for burning body fat. So that way that even after you've cut all the fat, you don't have to do this process again. It's actually a lot easier to stay lean than it is to getting lean. Once you have the muscle there and you're at that body fat percentage you want to be at, you can find yourself having like 3,000 calories and you'll still be very lean just as long as you maintain that muscle mass because that's going to be the engine that's going to keep that metabolism up high the whole time through. And then, of course, fixing your belief system. So there's a lot, like I've been on over 1,000 calls with different clients before, and they always say, I just want to lose like 5 pounds, or I just want to lose 10 pounds. And this person weighs 300 pounds, right? What does that tell us? It usually means that you don't believe that you're capable of a lot more. So if you come to a coach and come with a realistic goal, you don't want to go to a coach with a realistic goal. You're supposed to set a goal that you don't believe you're capable of achieving on your own, therefore you ask for help, right? If you believe you can achieve it on your own, yeah, that you're operating within your current school of thought, meaning, yeah, I don't really want abs. I just want to lose 5 or 10 pounds, nothing too crazy, right? Setting small goals is the reason why you end up being stuck in that mindset, right? And it's very hard to see yourself because when you look in the mirror, you might think, oh, but I have like 20 pounds of fat to lose. When in reality, if you're above 20% body fat at 180, you have a lot more to lose because it's one of those things that like when you remove 20 pounds of pressure from or any 20 pounds of weight from your body, you're also removing like it's 20 times 3, which is about 90 pounds of
60.
pressure or 60 pounds of pressure, 60 pounds of pressure from your joints. So you're going to be a lot more able to move better. You can
Wow.
breathe easier. Testosterone's improved. Especially as a man, your testosterone is your life source. So you're going to feel different. You're just going to love life better. You're going to have more drive. You're going to want to, quit. It's going to make you want to break up with that toxic relationship quit your job, start a business, travel across the world. It's going to make you want to do a lot of things. Um, and it's going to make you feel like the main character. When you start to prioritize your fitness and your personal health, the rest of your life gets 10 times better, and you'll start to notice it. Other people start to notice it. Your skin, you might even it also gets better. Your hair gets better. It's anti-aging. It's the one thing that doctors and the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to know about, because they start to lose money in the medical industry, right? They want you to take, prescriptions and pills and Ozempic, GLP-1s, even peptides now, which are essentially just a rebranded GLP-1s and Ozempic, than taking ownership of your own health, because it's a lot easier to slap on like a label over something that is than to take ownership and accountability for something you can control. So fixing your mindset and your belief system, it's this is arguably the most important thing. Now, many people, they don't want to like work on it because they think it's not that important. But the reality is that if you've never seen yourself, like think about, like, you've never seen yourself have abs before, or you've never seen yourself become a millionaire, right? You're trying to achieve a goal that is almost impossible. It feels impossible to reach, right? Or maybe like you've never been married before, right? You're trying to reach a goal that feels impossible. It feels like it's so rare, when in reality, you have to already claim those goals as if you already achieved it, right? Being like, I'm so grateful, I'm shredded, I'm healthy, I'm rich, and you're speaking abundance into your life, into your mindset. So that way it doesn't feel like it's so unrealistic, and you're less likely to give up on those goals when you speak abundance into your mindset. That being said, to kind of wrap this up, the best fat loss plan is not the hardest one. So this is one that you can sustainably and predictably have for years, meaning you don't just drop all the body fat just to gain it back, right? We want to make sure that we shred the body fat. On average, you should expect to shred about 1 to 2 pounds of body fat per week. If you're in a 500 calorie deficit every single day, that's 1 pound a week. If you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit every day, then that's 2 pounds a week. Um, I always recommend 1 pound a week, so that way that you can still you're a lot more, you actually have a lot longer of a runway. If you do 1,000 calorie version of it, you can probably shred up to like 30 pounds in 12 weeks. But again, it's not a sprint, it's not a marathon. You're trying to make sure that you keep the physique so that we don't have to work this hard again to achieve it. Once you have it, you're able to maintain it. And, and yeah, so just to kind of like recap, food for nutrition, you should be in a 500 calorie deficit a day, hitting your protein in body weights, and having some very low calorie snacks to curb cravings. This is only applies if you struggle with cravings. All right, fast food. This is like you need to have a backup option. The reason why I mention this is because not talking about it, because in reality, if you eat out when things get inconvenient or when you run out of meal prep, it's one of those things that everyone has a busy life. So if you're, suddenly like you realize you don't have any food in the fridge, and you only have an hour before your next meeting, and you have to get something real quick, you only have an if you make 5,000 decisions a day, you don't have enough, time or bandwidth to figure out what to eat. So you need to have already your go-to fast foods, meals you're going to get non-negotiable, and only pick from those three meals. Otherwise, when you're feeling like getting pizza, you get pizza. If you feel like getting, something like a burger with fries, you're going to get that instead. So, and then of course, strength training. So strength training, not with it, ideally within the 6 to 8 rep range, given that you're doing everything in good form. Caffeine in the around 12 p.m. 10,000 steps a day, and then mindset and accountability. Setting very big goals. So I know at the beginning of this training, I asked you guys to set some goals. All right, I want you guys to look at that goal and say, am I playing, think to yourself, am I playing too small, or do I think I can push myself a little bit harder? And you don't have to answer that now, but I want you guys to ask yourself that. Okay. That being said, was any other questions? Oh, and common mistakes. You also want to make sure that you don't have any pitfalls when it comes to going too extreme, skipping protein, ignoring sleep, and just waiting till you feel motivated because there's gonna be many days where you don't have to like going to the gym to work out. You don't have to like meal prepping to know that you need to do it. You don't have to like tracking your calories to know that you need to do it. At the same time, you don't need to track obsessively. You just need to be consistent. And the best way to do this is just by starting with your having a meal plan that you already know you're gonna have every day because you don't have to track, instead of tracking 21 times throughout the week, you only have to track, and do your meal prep for 1 hour a week. So what's more reasonable for you to do? And then, of course, comparing yourself to others, right? Like progress, it happens different for everybody. There's some people it takes 12 weeks and they drop 30 pounds, and some other people it might take 6 months. It could take a year. But of course, it depends on how hard you work, how disciplined you are, and how much action you guys take. That being said, I'm gonna leave the floor to any questions.